Episode 11, week 11 of Survivor 43 is here, and we left off with Noelle, the one being voted out at the end of Tribal Council. So she is the one that's gone after a big episode for her, after the whole immunity challenge and everything like that. Or it was the reward challenge, actually. She won the whole reward challenge. She kind of had a big episode, you know. She got her some big emotional moments for her and whatever else. I did like her. I was kind of rooting for her to win, but she ultimately was voted out. That's the way Survivor goes. So week 11 here, we start out with basically the fallout from the last Tribal Council, which it always seems to be. And it's basically Sammy who voted for Carla, and he was like the only one that voted for Carla. And there was this whole like beef between Carla and Sammy right after Tribal Council, because it seemed that Sammy just didn't really know the whole game and what he was going to do, so he was just kind of left out of the whole loop of what they were voting. So he was kind of like the only one that voted for her, so they figured it out pretty quickly. And there was this whole like thing, and then we got this whole kind of another sob story for Survivor, which we do a lot these days. For Sammy, it's just kind of him, you know, getting all emotional and whatever. Didn't really need it, but it's what they do on Survivor. And then we got some little bit of gameplay, I think, before the challenge even started. We got Sammy trying to separate Cassidy and Carla, because he's trying to basically save himself now. So he's trying to put some separation between Cassidy, Carla, because they're kind of like an alliance, the two girls left on the tribe. And he's trying to say that, you know, Cassidy's the one who wanted to get Carla out all along, and, you know, that's why he voted for her. So we got a little bit of that before we went into the challenge. And before we went to the challenge, they also introduced another new advantage in the game, and it was actually a brand new one, at least to me, at least recently. It's different than 41 and 42, where there is this hidden advantage. They literally bring a boat in after the Tribal Council, like the morning of, and they bring a boat in. This guy literally hands them the whole tribe a note. They read it, and it's like they say there is an advantage hidden on the island. Go. There's like an advantage in the jungle. Go. It literally says just go. And they all run out. They run around, search for this thing. I think the name of the episode is actually like right like in plain sight, because the advantage literally sitting on a tree, and the camera angle that the camera people used in this episode was actually really funny. They made it really interesting, because they literally were showing the advantage sitting right on the tree as everyone is walking right past it, and like walking right past it, behind it, leaning on the tree and all that stuff, as it's right there. It's literally right there. I don't know how close the camera people or the cameramen were to that, but they were obviously zoomed in right on it, alongside literally everyone just like walking all around it. And it ended up being Cody, who was the one leaning on the tree, and he was just kind of talking. I remember who he was talking to, but he was talking to somebody, and he kind of just glanced over. You know, he's just kind of like looking around. He happened to glance over, and there it was. The advantage was actually blending in with the tree, so a lot of people, if you don't really look for it at that spot, they don't see it, so they just kind of look past it. But he ended up seeing it, and he happened to be leaning on the tree, luckily for Cody, so he was able to just kind of like reach his arm up kind of casually, and it was all like normal, and nobody really noticed, except for obviously once you get to the challenge, and Jeff basically it all has to be revealed once he gets to the challenge anyways, that he found it. But he did it pretty casually when he did find it. He took it off the tree, and the advantage is to basically choose your champion for the next challenge. So basically the next challenge is going to be where all of the contestants are going to be underwater, basically, under this like gate. This gate of, I don't know, these bars, metal bars or bamboo bars, whatever. And they're going to be basically trying to gasp for air until somebody wins. That's basically what the challenge is. So Jeff was playing this challenge. It sounds like this challenge has been done before. I don't remember it, but it sounds like they've done it before, and the whole idea is that they have to basically hold their breath, and their faces kind of like sticking out of the bars here, and they have to keep their breath as long as they can as the tide continues to rise. So they have this little meter, and the tide will continue to rise, and they are in there for hours. And Cody ends up choosing Owen, by the way. He chooses Owen to be his champion. So if Owen ends up winning this challenge and Cody doesn't, Cody is still safe. So he literally like earns immunity with Owen if Owen wins. So with this, they have to keep their breath, and they have to stick their face basically as far as they can outside of this gate. And a lot of people come out, or a few people like Gabler and them fall out pretty quickly. Then there's a few people who end up going in there for hours, like 2-3 hours. And you had Cassidy, she was in there for like 2 hours, and then she ended up losing, and it was down to like Owen and Carla. And ultimately the challenge was based around the tide and how the tide was rising, and essentially the tide was supposed to take everybody out until there was one person left. And I guess nobody has actually won and gone through the challenge past the tide, and the tide had already started to lower again, and Carla and Owen were still in the challenge, meaning Carla and Owen were basically just going to stay there forever at that point because it was already going down. So Jeff made a decision that there are 2 winners in this challenge. I guess it works. It makes sense because the tide's down and his idea of the challenge and how it works kind of failed. I don't know if they would want to do this challenge again because of that, because now there's been people who've actually kind of beaten the challenge. I don't know if they'll do it again or they'll change something or whatnot, but two winners. So we have Carla and Owen who ended up winning this challenge. So it's kind of interesting. 2 winners, and then Cody obviously chose Owen to win. So there's 3 people safe tonight. There's 3 people safe tonight already, and there's some immunities out there and stuff as well, and 3 people safe. So we're going from 1 to 3 people safe now tonight, and it shifts now to who we're going to vote out. You know, there's 7 people left, and now there's 3 of those people safe. So where do we go from there? So once we get back to Tribal, we got this whole, like, kind of still this whole thing between Carla and Cassidy. And Carla, even though I don't know if it's because of Sammy and him trying to kind of wedge this thing between Cassidy and her. Either way, she wants to get Cassidy out now because Cassidy is the only one that knows about her immunity. So she kind of just wants to get rid of Cassidy. It's her most trusted ally in the game. So eventually she's kind of playing this whole thing where, all right, I'm going to get my ally out. I'm going to get my biggest ally out of the game, make my big play. And that's kind of what Carla wants to do. She's obviously got some power because she ended up winning the challenge. She cannot go home. And then Jesse doesn't really like the idea that Cassidy is kind of the one that Carla wants to get out. And Jesse ends up making the choice, what if we get Sammy out? It's going to make some big plays here. Sammy's kind of on the outs. So that's kind of the 2 names that are getting thrown around. It is Sammy and Cassidy. That's kind of the 2 names. There's always about 2-3 names every week that end up just kind of getting thrown in the mix. And that is where we go into the Tribal Council. Very rarely do we get like a really big surprise blindside, which is always fun. But sometimes those surprise blindsides are always because they just kind of edit out a lot of the talk around it. They've done that before where they literally just edit out a lot of the talk around a blindside where you're going into a tribal with almost no idea of the person actually going home, and you only saw the conversations of who you think would go between like the 2. But this one was pretty basic. Sammy ended up going to Tribal Council and saying that he basically felt very unsafe and he was going to play his shot in the dark, meaning he has no vote. He has no vote and he doesn't know if he's going to be safe or if he is going to basically not be safe and have no vote. So either way, he's playing the shot in the dark, meaning he's got no vote. His vote means nothing now. He was pretty confident, I suppose, in where his idea was of the vote going. So he played the shot in the dark, and I don't think anyone's won this yet, but the shot in the dark is basically you got like a very low shot of actually getting like a safe, so it's basically like an immunity. He didn't win, he was not safe, so he was vulnerable just like everybody else with the votes. So, and it kind of made sense why Sammy played it, because it was basically the only thing he could have done, because he was the one who got voted out. So it wasn't really a surprising vote, but we're getting down there now. There's like 6 players left in the game now. We're getting very low. I'm sure we got a few weeks left here, and then we'll be at the finale of Survivor 43. And I gotta say, man, I'm really liking this season. I say this every week now. I've been liking this season a lot more than I have been liking 41, 42. I really loved 40. That's like the most recent seasons in my memory as a longtime casual viewer, I would say. And it's the most recent seasons in memory. I remember 39 being very preachy as well, with all this woke stuff and whatever. In 41 and 42 were heavy on it as well. 43 has really shifted. And I don't know if it's because they're editing certain things out. Tribal councils aren't really blowing up like they have in the past. And I love it. I'm really enjoying the season. I think it's just a very enjoyable, basic Survivor season, you know? It hasn't been like the most insane, explosive, wild season of Survivor ever. But after the last few seasons that have been just unbearable at some points, this is very, very refreshing. And I'm super happy with this season of Survivor. And that's kind of why I wanted to cover it, because I didn't know what was going to happen, and I'm kind of having fun talking about Survivor because I've always watched it. I've always just kind of watched it, forgot about it a little bit, come back to it every season. And after they started to mess around with the preachiness of each season, it really got brought to my attention, like, wow, nobody's really talking about this but me. And now I just kind of want to cover each season, go in depth a little bit more than I maybe used to, and I'm really having fun here. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's fun. So hopefully this season turns out very well in the end. We probably got a few episodes left and then it's done, and we could be woke free this season, basically. Hopefully. I'm really hoping because I'm really rooting for a good Survivor season here. And Sammy is the next one voted out. Kind of surprising. He hasn't been playing that great, but yeah, now we're getting into the final 6 here, so it's going to be some big votes in the next episodes. So that is Survivor Week 11. Sammy is gone, and we are on to the next.